against a Florida, you know schematically what they're trying to do. They're having the same problems running the football that LSU is, maybe even a little bit more so. And they throw the ball as well as anybody in the country right now. Traska's got 14 touchdown passes and 1 interception. So the crossing routes have crushed LSU. The communication errors have crushed LSU. What do you do?
Well, whatever the game plan is, you better be ready for everything that Dan Mullen has. He's going to throw it at you because you've been confused in every game. Even in the game you won against Vanderbilt, there was a couple of plays where it was Vanderbilt and they just missed. They missed a wheel. They missed big plays down the field that they potentially had. You were so confused in week 1. You were definitely confused last week. And Eli Drinkwitz, give him credit, and we talked about it. There's a lot of shifts. There's a lot of motions. There's a lot of eye candy. Okay, Dan Mullen's going to give you that times 10. That's what he is. That's who he is. He's one of the best play callers in college football. So you better be ready for everything. But here's the deal. Your communication errors, you don't have that luxury. You've got to simplify your defense, and you have to just play pretty much basic. Maybe it's better. Can't be worse.
If you put a base defense out there and let Dan Mullen have his way with matchups, look, I'm all for simplifying this thing because I don't need them pointing at each other going, who's supposed to be in that big empty space in the middle of the field.
And when I say base defense, I don't mean roll out a 4-3 with
no,
a Sam.
I know what you mean.
I'm just mean simplify it where this is the coverage that we're going to play.
And if you do that, doesn't Mullen immediately see that in the next drive they come out and they go, okay, well, if we motion this way, we're going to have this mismatch. Isn't that what he does?
You will create a mismatch without a doubt, but you know what you won't have? A guy running free by himself because the biggest mismatch is a guy on air.
Yeah. Air's for instance, Tony's the guy. You said this right before lunch.
That's what makes me nervous.
Yeah. Okay. So don't you, if LSU vanillas this up, don't you find a way to get Tony on somebody who can't cover him?
Absolutely, because he's a speed guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's not only a good receiver, but he can run the football. They use him in that aspect. He's got 5 carries for 60 yards, right? He's hitting big hits already in the run game. That terrifies me as well because they can give it to him, simple motion. You can hand it to him. You can soft pitch it to him. You can do whatever. But if he gets the corner with the way that the edge is not being set right now in LSU's defense, that's yet another way that the Florida offense can beat you. And you know they're going to try to create that mismatch by motioning and getting him on your third best cover guy.
Well, I called him Percy Harvin light. He's not as talented as Harvin, but he does a lot of the same things, just not quite as well. One of the things A&M was able to do was they were able to keep Florida's offense off the field. Florida only snapped the ball 56 times on Saturday, and they did that by running the football. Isaiah Spiller had a very big game. So the best defense is a good offense. Are you trying to come out there and control the ball a little bit more, even if you get some pass matchups that you like? I thought Saturday that they abandoned the run a little bit in the first half. I know why, because they didn't feel like anybody could cover 6 or could cover 2, and they were right. I mean, those guys had almost 300 yards receiving between them. Actually, they had over 300 yards between them. Okay, but then Terrace Marshall goes 75 yards for a touchdown, and that's great. I mean, we'll take that every time.
Yeah.
But then the other guys get the ball back, and they start just hammering away at you a little bit, and Florida can do that.
I understand everything you're saying. We've talked about this in the first block, and I know we got some new listeners. There was nothing as an offensive coordinator that tells me to call a run because you were averaging less than a yard, right, before contact. That's not good. To flip that, Missouri had over 5 yards before they were contacted, okay? And you broke 2 tackles. The offensive line was not allowing you to have big plays in the run game. You had one good run all day long, okay? So if I'm an offense coordinator and I want to be balanced, I do. But I've got 2 guys that can't be covered. I've got a quarterback that's playing as confident as anyone, and I got a run game that's not great right now. I'll never call a run because if you call runs, it's a bad call. You're not getting any yards doing that, and you want to be balanced, but you feel like you have to play perfect right now. You feel like if I don't go out here and I don't get yards in bunches and score points, we're going to get run out of the building. At least I'm giving our team an opportunity to try to win this shootout. That's what's happening on offense right now. Half a yard before contact, and you're running out of shotgun, you're getting mad at the line of scrimmage every single time.
He didn't say much about effort. And I bring it up because it's something he did talk about in the last 2 press conferences. He called the loafs. How many loafs did you grade? Nobody asked him that today, but how many loafs would they have graded? I thought I saw more loafing, more jogging, more basically a flippant attitude than I saw in the Mississippi State game. So how do you address that?
A lot of times bad angles, and then once you took the bad angles, like, oh, okay, he's gone. I'm just going to jog here. I know exactly what you're saying, and that wasn't addressed today. That's got to be addressed. If you take a bad angle, okay, well, you find a way to fight till the end. That's just not things that we're used to seeing, because we said it earlier. Like, we know who's trying to give them the juice. I've never seen a head coach with as much juice, right? And you're trying to get those things done. I mean, there's a million things we could sit here and we could point to.
There's a little bit of a psychology that's got to go on here for the head coach. You got a team that's 1-2 for the first time in over a quarter century. So this is not a place that anybody in this program is used to. So you've got to have a certain mentality to get that part fixed. That after the Troy and the Mississippi State games, was it time to use the kid gloves or really light a fire? I remember Parcells saying something once. I think it was Parcells said this first. He may have gotten it from somebody else. That the time to jump on your team is not when everybody else is jumping on them. That's the time to use a lighter touch. And the time to use the lighter touch is not when they're playing well, because everybody's telling them how good they're playing. That's when the time to jump on them. But I don't know if that works here, because I don't know that you can have a real light conversation about lack of effort. That's not a put your arm around somebody and go, now you're going to have to run a little harder.
Right.
That doesn't work. So I think it's a tough psychological game that Orgeron's got to play here.
It is, and everybody views this different. A lot of people don't like how transparent Coach Paul Maneri is, right? A lot of people don't like that. I was raised, tell me, please, tell me. Like, y'all know, I told y'all my background. My dad was in the military, a policeman for 30 years. I was going to know if I wasn't doing things the right way. Not sensitive. Didn't grow up sensitive. You didn't have that option to grow up sensitive. Tell me so I can fix it. Let everyone know who it is so I can go out there and fix it. I'll be honest with you. That's the school that I come from. I know it's not for everybody, but sometimes you have to do it.
Well, I think he comes out and he takes responsibility. We got to coach it better. No arguments there. But I think you can get on the kids and still say, hey, listen, we're going to give you the tools to do this, but you got to play better too. We can't. All we can do is teach it. And we're not teaching it well. That's obvious. We'll simplify it. We'll get it to a point where you're comfortable. But at that point, you got to go out and play. You can't dog it no matter what coverage we call. You can't dog it no matter what front we play. And you're about to go into a place where they may have their crowd back on Saturday. You having communication issues in an empty stadium. They may actually have a crowd there this Saturday. That ain't going to help your communication any. So, like I said, I think it's a tough go. I thought Saturday was pretty disturbing on a lot of levels for the team. Not necessarily a program. I don't like to. Well, then they'll never win. No, it'll be different. It may get worse, may get better, but it'll be different. That's why I've shied away from. I've gotten this 50 times since yesterday. Well, they're not going to win another game or point to another game on the schedule. I will say that there is not another game that they can take for granted. There's not another sure win. We were foolish enough to say, well, there's 6 wins on there, and then there's a couple that are toss-ups. And you and I said that. I think everybody on the station has said that at some point, in some form, and it sounded good. I believed it. It's not true anymore because
it's a dogfight every week.
Every week. Watched Ole Miss go for 600 yards on Alabama. Watched Arkansas get hosed at Auburn, or they got a road win there.
South Carolina's played their you-know-what off every week.
South Carolina's a handful of drops from having a shot to beat Florida on the road. They're right there in a one-score game with Tennessee where a pick six is the difference in that game, and they beat Vanderbilt by the same score you did on Saturday. Ain't no gimmies. Not a single one that's left on the schedule here. Daniel said, looks like it's going to be bend but don't break with zone defenses across the board here on out due to the widespread use of the RPOs. Zone didn't help.
No, they're actually really bad in zone. It was turn on the tape. It was one of the biggest struggles was them trying to play zone. And I had my hand raised the highest when I said, go to zone against Mississippi State. Doesn't look like that's going to be a strong suit either right now. But to that point, you'd almost rather them keep everything in front of them. That's my least favorite brand of defense. But if it's simpler, if it keeps you communicated with each other, okay. I mean, right? Because like we just talked about in the first block of coming back in studio, you can either have guys running free or you can try to have individual matchups and hope your guy wins it.
LSU forced multiple turnovers against Mississippi State and Mizzou and still lost. If they don't do the same against Florida, they're going to get boat raced.
+3 in both those games. Let's call it like it is right now. Missouri tried to give that game away a couple different times. Their punt return game was one of the worst I've seen.
Yeah, you got one turnover and you almost got a second. You should have got a second one.
And there was one where you knock it out of the receiver's hands. They call it incomplete there. Okay, well, that was a difference maker in the game. I mean, they put the ball on the turf plenty of times. You're creating turnovers. That's a positive. It's a positive that you're doing that. And in fact, you scored, 17 points off turnovers?
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't a situation where, and we said it earlier, this isn't a situation where you're in a shootout and everybody's playing well. Like, right? Offense is just playing well. Everything's synced in. You're in a shootout against a team that's in the middle of the SEC. That's not the scenario. Your only wins for the teams you've lost to are against you. Mississippi State, since they've played you, has been extremely bad on offense. In fact, they didn't score against Kentucky. Kentucky won the game by 22 points and had less than 200 total yards.
6 interceptions will do that to you.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, LSU was +3 in that game. Didn't help them. Okay? And then you look at Mizzou. Now, Mizzou put up a better fight against Alabama. They got beat pretty bad, okay? Tennessee housed them. Tennessee pulled away from Mizzou. That's something else to pay attention to.
There are going to be yards given up. If you look at across the board in the SEC, with the exception of Georgia, everybody is giving up yards. I think personally it's got a lot to do with how your offseason went. You didn't have spring where you can do a lot of contact without worrying about having the injuries a week to week. You didn't have a true fall camp as far as the physicality of it. You had a lot of things where you were distancing things like that. You knew it was going to be extra long, so you didn't want to just beat on them so much to where they were physically worn out. The mental mistakes should have come way down with all of the installs. They didn't. The physical stuff, I think a lot of teams didn't get to do. It's not just LSU. Florida gave up over 500 yards. Alabama gave up over 600 yards. We're talking about good team. I mean, Ole Miss gave up 700 yards, but Ole Miss doesn't have the defensive talent. A&M gave up right at 500 yards. They're not the only ones that are giving up yards by the boatload. I think that's a product of preseason, except for Georgia. Georgia's the outlier there. But you have to be able to turn the ball over, and you have to be able to play some red zone defense. You have to be able to limit points. I don't know how much you're going to be able to limit yards. You have to hold teams to field goals. It reminds me a great deal of the 09 Saints defense. They gave up a ton of yards, but they played pretty good red zone defense, and they forced a lot of turnovers. That's how you can sort of negate a lot of the yards that you give up. So far, LSU hasn't been able to do that either. So I don't know. I don't know what you do about that, because you're right. If Missouri doesn't turn the ball over 3 times on Saturday, it's a lot worse. Jeff wants to know, Jacob, how in the heck are wide receivers so wide open? I don't know if I got the right amount of O's in there. So wide open time and time again.
Because, as we talked about, there's finger pointing. This guy's playing zone. This guy's playing man. That's a lot of the things, right? And then you got guys doing too much. That's when really bad defense comes to light, is when you're trying to fix it and you're trying to do somebody else's job and you're not doing your job. Like, I'm playing man coverage and I'm trying to play 2 guys, or I'm playing zone coverage, but before I get into my zone, I'm going to carry the drag route a little bit closer to you so you have a better chance. And then, oh, crap, my guy's wide open. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of guys trying to play 2 positions. And I understand it as a competitor. You're trying to fix everything by yourself. It doesn't work that way. Bad defenses come to light when you try to do too much.
Ask Hester, did you see LSU run any stunts or twists on the defensive line because they didn't get much penetration?
Not in the run game. You would have liked to have seen some run stunts, and that would have kept Missouri's players from getting 5.3 yards before contact. 5.3 yards. So 5 yards before you get contacted, and if you're a good running back like Larry Roundtree is, you're going to fall forward for 7. It's just that's the fact of it. You're going to fall forward for 7. Okay, now it's 2nd and 3. And that's where LSU's getting into trouble, is because they're having to try to be perfect on offense and throwing the football, and you have some 0 for 10s on third downs because you're behind the chains, because you can't run the football, one, and then you're not doing it on first down because you have half a yard before contact.
We know defenses. I'm reading questions, by the way. We know defense is the main problem, but how bad was not retaining George Munoz look now?
I mean, I love George. George's a fantastic football coach, but like he said, he answered his own question. It's not offensively. Even in Mississippi State, where there was things that we critiqued up and down.
Which position does Munoz coach? Quarterbacks. Okay, quarterback's been fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the quarterback's been fine. The offensive line has some issues. They're not getting any kind of push. You named the stat 4 or 5 times now.
You might hear 7 more.
How much more could Brennan have done Saturday? I mean, I know the 4 plays at the 1 yard line, the 0 for 10 on third down, but they put up almost 500 yards of offense, scored 41
But again,
points.
Miles handed it off twice in the goal line. The third play was kind of a trick play, and could he have had a better throw? Yes, but the 4th down play, that's the play. That's the play.
I like Munoz too, but that's not going to solve their biggest problem.
The things we criticized Miles for in week 1, has he not gotten extremely better in those scenarios?
Yeah, and it's not like he was terrible in week 1.
Right.
He looks a lot more comfortable.
Yes,
is the word. A lot of people don't. They're not able to catch the beginning part of the show. But you asked this question: who would you like to have back the most of the guys that opted out? Would it be Chase? Would it be Shelvin? Would it be Vincent? And we both said Vincent, not because
he was. And Shelvin was number 2, close. It wasn't.
Yeah, but not because Chase is not the best player out of that group, but because they have replaced him. Marshall is playing every bit as well at this point as Chase was a year ago at this time. They don't have anybody that's playing as good in the secondary as what Vincent was playing at the end of last year. And they don't have anybody playing on the interior of the line as good as Shelvin was playing last year. Jeff says, how in the heck was Gilbert not in on one of those 4 goal line plays? All right, I had to unpack the gear for a second. If he talked about it, I missed it. I'm just assuming that Gilbert wasn't available to go in the game on that 3rd and 4th down. If he was, there was no reason to have him on the sideline.
We got to the car late after we were finishing up over at Sammy's. I didn't hear that. If he did answer that, please shoot it inside the Bayou Ford huddle. He'd been nicked up in the game. We saw that. He goes off the field, and that would have been that's where his payday is. His payday's going to always be in the red area. And the red area has in crucial times, that's been a struggle because the goal line, well, that's still part of the red area.
Marcus says, do we need to try different linebackers or defensive line personnel? Well, he said it. They're going to. Yep. Now, he also said that they want to get bigger, and I led with that a little while ago. I don't know how much bigger you can get than what they've got out there right now.
I know we're talking defensive ends too, but listen, I mean, it was soft in the middle as well.
You want to put Baskerville in for Clark or Cox? I mean, that's a guy that's played. You could put him in there. He's about the same size as Cox. In fact, they're listed at the exact same weight, 231 pounds. So they're about the same size. Clark's a little bit heavier than that. He's probably 240. How much bigger? You want to kick Stevens down to a linebacker and play another safety over the top? Who's that? Cam Lewis is the next guy probably. He played some on Saturday. He was lost. Most of them were lost. I don't see a lot of massive personnel changes that you can make. I really don't. I think by and large they've got the best people out there. If as Neil Farrell gets into better shape, you can play him more. Okay, I'm there. You want to change up your running back rotation and run Emory a little bit more than Curry? I would probably be in favor of that. Past that, I don't know. You want to see more B.J. Ojulari? I'm fine with that. Yeah. Kid's got an enormous amount of potential, but he's not bigger. He's actually smaller.
Yeah, he's 230 pounds at best. Yeah,
he rushed passer though.
Yeah,
I'd actually like to see him a lot. You want to talk about a pass, a a personnel change that you want to see this weekend with Kyle Trask over there, yeah, I'm all for seeing some more of Ojulari. And other than that, on the offensive line, when Ingram gets back, I didn't think Turner was – I didn't see him get run over on Saturday, but the
I
lack
didn't see
of
a lot of push either.
the lack of push was glaring in the running game stats.
The thing that's always going to upset me more than anything, and this is personal, is when you're on the 1 yard line, I don't care. I don't want to hear any excuse. I don't want to hear they were doing this, that, or the other. When you're on the 1 yard line and you're Louisiana State University and the other team is Missouri, there's just got to be a way in those first two plays to find a crease. Now, to Ty Davis Price, hey, buddy, there wasn't a lot there. In the second one, there was a free release guy coming straight off the backside that even if you make the first wave miss, he's coming. But I'm talking about the push. You've got to be able to get push and have the pride to get in from 3 feet away.
I think if you give him the football with a running start, he's got a chance to get in even if there is penetration. I mean, if he's coming towards the line of scrimmage, God strike me down for saying this, getting the I formation, getting the one back from the one. I'm not talking about going back to the old days. I'm talking about for 1 yard, put the quarterback under center and let your 230-pound tailback go towards the line of scrimmage. Even if somebody comes clean, they got to square him up. Otherwise, he's going to fall forward for 3 feet. I hate running what is essentially a draw play at the goal line because you're outnumbered at the point of attack. But by the math of it doesn't work. So you have to be able to muscle your way in, and asking Price to muscle his way in from a dead stop basically a dead stop when he gets the football, he's taking a hop step, but that's hard to do. Then you have to get push. I mean, and sometimes it doesn't work even the other way. Ask the Vikings last night. They needed to make a yard to win the game, and they didn't. But this one hurt.